What's up, everybody? I'm Katie.
And I'm Morgan.
And this is For Your Misinformation, a podcast dedicated to empowering women to be more politically engaged so we can act in our own best interests.
Let us break down the problem and tell you what we're doing and what you can do to help solve it.
Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Katie.
How are you?
I am pretty good. I'm very proud of my doggie today because she went to the vet and was the best girl ever because she just is. So I'm having a great day because of that. How are you?
She got a clean bill of health.
Yeah. The vet even thought she might be a little bit younger.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I was like, really? He's like, yeah.
That's always good news.
That's what I want to hear.
I'm good.
Your hair looks amazing today.
Oh, thank you. I showered. We took Squeaky to her foster trial forever home.
Yay, Squeaky.
Yes. So I felt Squeaky just started sleeping in Jay's bed like 2 nights ago. I know. So I feel like so bad because like she finally turned into a normal cat. And then this morning, I like brought the carrier into the kitchen and we like put her in there and she hated every moment of it. And I just feel like we tricked her and we feel so bad. But we told them, we were like, if they don't like her, we'll take her back. But everybody please cross your fingers that Squeaky found her forever home because my actual cat, Hazel, the OG, my favorite, she has been so happy all day. Yeah. Like she's had the zoomies. I forgot like how often she used to have the zoomies. She like had the zoomies all day because she can run wherever she wants in the house now because Squeaky's not like lurking around the corner ready to attack. So yeah, I really hope this is permanent. But
Oh, poor Squeaky.
yeah. So today we have an interview, a special interview with Kyle Plant Emoji, who is the person who created our intro and outro music. So Kyle grew up in an evangelical household, so we talked a little bit about that, talked about some fun politics stuff. So why don't you guys enjoy this interview, and then once that is over, Morgan and I will come back and we'll talk a little bit about why we don't tax churches and how messed up that is. All right, I pressed record, so I guess officially don't say anything that you don't want our audio person Ben to hear. But Ben is very nice.
I was just about to launch into how much I hate Ben and how mean I think he is. So I'm glad he gave me that warning.
You must be talking about a different Ben, because the Ben I know would never.
We love and appreciate Ben so much.
That is true. He spends so much time editing out ums and likes, and we appreciate it.
Oh, God bless you, Ben.
Okay, so I usually start out every episode asking people how we met, but also most episodes are with people that I've met in real life. But do you remember how we met?
Not at all.
Okay.
I have the worst memory.
No, that's fine. So, okay, for people who don't know, Kyle is one of the funniest people on Twitter at Kyle Plant or no, what is it? What is your
Yes,
Twitter?
Kyle Plant Emoji.
Okay. Kyle Plant Emoji. And you also, I don't know, you have so many random skills. I mean, you're very, very funny, but you also have so many random skills that I am always surprised by, but writing music is one of those skills. Right? Like you do.
Yes. Yeah, no, I love writing music. I've been producing since I was like 14, so we're going up on like half my life now.
Cool. And that doesn't have anything to do with like your job, right? That's just like an extra skill.
No, I'm a
that
software
you have.
developer.
Okay. Well, Kyle wrote the music for this podcast only because I randomly reached out to you on Twitter and I was like, I wonder if he would do that. And you did. And we love it. So now people get to meet the person who...
Oh, that's this podcast.
That's this podcast. That's us. That's me.
That's awesome. I feel so bad that I didn't
no.
put two and two together.
I remember when Katie told me that you wrote it. I'm like, wait, what? Kyle Plant Emoji wrote the podcast music? I was so confused. I was like, in what universe is the podcast music guy and the Twitter guy the same? I was blown away.
I know. I barely have one skill.
That's what I said too.
Like, if we want to go into it, I can pull up the project file and like pick it apart, and we can go through the various layers and stuff. If that's something you'd be interested in.
I don't know. Is that interesting? I don't know anything about it.
Well, see, that's the thing is I'm fascinated by stuff like that, and I just assume everyone else is fascinated in whatever I'm fascinated in.
Yeah.
So maybe not, but you know, if we get to the end or something and we still have other stuff to go over, we can go over it.
Okay.
That's how we are about politics. We're like, everyone loves talking about this stuff, don't they? And then everyone else at the dinner table's like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's like, so anyway, everybody's involved with the giant child trafficking sex ring, and that's not even the worst thing that's going on right now. And everybody's like,
but that's still a very bad thing.
Yeah.
And I was so confused. Like, why is it always people in power? That seems like a very, very weird overlap that I wouldn't have expected. Like, yeah, people in power are generally going to be shitty, but like, this is a very specific and extremely shitty thing.
Yeah, like,
I hope I'm not, downplaying exactly how shitty it is by talking about it using the term shitty. But
it's just like, I didn't think they'd go directly to like, I can get away with evil, so I'm going to.
Yeah, but I was reading I forget where I was reading it, but someone was breaking it down, and they were like, if that is something that a person needs to do, they need power necessarily to achieve it. So it's not that those desires preceded the power necessarily, and then they used that influence to climb up, and now they're finally in a spot where they're less likely to get caught.
Sure.
Consequences won't be as huge if they do get caught, etc.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of our interests, even if producing music is not one of them, do overlap. And a lot of what I see you talk about on Twitter is evangelical Christianity, which is not a lifestyle that Morgan or I grew up in. I had like a pretty non-religious upbringing. I don't know, Morgan, if you want to talk about what your, experience is at all.
Yeah, my upbringing was definitely not evangelical, but I was raised in like your very typical like Christian left home. Like raised by some like proud middle ground Democrats in like a Lutheran home. So it's like conservative, but like in a liberal way. Yeah. And very like Jesus is loving rather than like fire and brimstone. Very different.
So what does that like compare to how you were raised and like the role religion played in your childhood?
So it changed. Absolutely. I know that my parents started off like before they had me, they were very conservative, voted R down the line all the time. But as they grew up and started, like they always took faith very, very seriously, and they took scripture very seriously, the gospels very seriously. Their relationship with God and with Jesus was something that they prioritized over anything political that might bubble up. So I remember being like a little kid and not being allowed to watch things like Dragon Ball Z or, Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it had witchcraft and there were gods that weren't the god, the one. And so that's how I was affected that was the worst thing to me as a kid. I was like, I can't watch Dragon Ball Z. This is some bullshit. I didn't say that because I wasn't allowed, but I definitely thought it. But then as I grew up, I don't know, I was going to church multiple times a week, every single week throughout the entirety of my upbringing. And then I got involved playing music for the church, which is kind of cool. Looking back on it, I was playing in front of people and I grew a lot as a musician because of that, which is nice.
Yeah.
But to get back towards the worldview thing, I don't know. There was so much the cognitive dissonance became very, very apparent to me when we're talking about things like Jesus loves everyone and and he saved, and then also gay people are horrible and going to hell type stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So like a lot of that just wasn't sitting right with me. And I had a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and I was probably going to just abandon it altogether when I turned 18 and left to go to college in the Seattle area at a very, very, very left-leaning private college, small private college, University of Puget Sound, for those who are interested. But one of the first things I did, my roommate, he was the son of a pastor from Kansas. So he had a very similar upbringing to me. You know, I was raised in Minnesota by very strict, and you know, he's raised in the Midwest by a pastor, and so we had that. And he was also a musician, so we both brought like 30 instruments into our tiny little freshman dorm room. And he was like, "Oh, by the way, I was asked to play music for this Christian group on campus. Would you like to join? Would you like to play also? Because, you know, you play music." And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's something I know how to do. It's an easy way to get involved on campus. I don't know, I'm still agreeing with all the whole teaching and stuff." But that was an easy way for me to get in. And the very first quote unquote sermon that I heard from this guy, who's to this day one of my best friends, he talked about how not only is doubt not a bad thing, but it should be actively encouraged, and you should be questioning, and you should be able to grapple with these concepts and not feel like you're denying some large part of you by questioning. And I was like, "Oh, well, maybe this guy's got some things that he can say." He's okay. So I sat down with him and I got coffee with him, and I was like, "Well, here's the thing, bub. I don't know if you know this, but the church has done some pretty bad stuff, and they treat some people very poorly, and gosh darn it, sir, I'm angry." And he goes, "Yeah, you should be." And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah, that's all bullshit. Like, none of that is included in the way that I interpret these texts and things." And I was like, "Oh, all right." So that sort of kickstarted the deconstruction of my faith and all these things that I considered to be central tenets. And so I kept moving away from that sort of religion that I was raised on as I moved throughout college, and as I continued to participate with this group, which they ended up becoming my best friends in the world now.
Nice.
And it was always motivated by, you know, most of us had that baggage of a shitty conservative upbringing, and we're trying to reconcile that with how we wanted to act in the world and how we wanted to see the messages of Jesus represented.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are still Christian, some aren't. I consider myself to be a Christian atheist at this point, just because I studied you know, the Gospels a whole lot and got a lot of mileage out of sort of those pacifist worldviews, those sort of, you know, not like anti religious power views that Jesus, you know, he's like, these people in power, they're kind of not doing the right thing and they're actually screwing you over. And I see so many parallels to, you know, Christian leadership now,
Right,
etc. So I hold a lot of that in my heart just necessarily because of how much I studied and was raised with it. And it still does guide me a lot when it comes to certain moral quandaries, but I don't like magic. I'm not a fan of the miracles. I don't have a spirituality of any kind, but I do. Sometimes I'll pray, honestly, because one of the things that I learned when I was doing this whole faith deconstruction process was that so much of the stuff that we were asked to do, quote unquote, for God, like pray to God because he needs you to talk to, it was actually, the purpose was what you were getting out of it.
Yeah.
Especially, I thought group prayer was incredibly powerful. That the idea of being vulnerable with other people and saying, these are my needs and they're not being met. My dad is sick and I'm really worried about it. Or not even the bad stuff too, but just like, hey, I got the job and I want to share that with you. And we can all come together and collectively acknowledge either these hurts or these joys. in a way that isn't really done in many secular practices.
Yeah.
So I keep some of that. I hold on to some of that, but again, like I said, not a fan of magic.
Yeah. So you've kind of deconstructed it and taken away the parts you don't like and kept the parts that are good and beneficial. And
Yeah,
that sounds
and
very
it wasn't
healthy.
it wasn't an instant process either. It wasn't like one day I woke up and I was like atheist now, but I just sort of took stock of all the things about me that had changed, and I was like, I don't think it's right to call myself, capital C Christian.
Yeah. So you talked about some of those, especially like Sunday school stories, like shaping your values. Like, is there a particular one or two that come to mind that like really you think really shaped you?
I think, well, they're all gonna be cliche in some way because a lot of it is cliche stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think certain stories stood out to me at different parts in my life. Um, I think one of the big ones was uh, the prodigal son, just because I think a large part of Christianity, especially the more right-leaning evangelical aspect, a lot of it involves a lot of shame.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that you are broken and born in sin, you're always going to be a sinner, and how lucky you are to be loved by. And so this story wasn't about holding someone accountable for the shitty things that they did, but rather celebrating the movement away from that. And it's sort of the celebration of, you're here now and I love you. I'm going to throw a fucking party about it, even though you stole my money and left me. Like, I am so grateful just to have you back. And I love you so much that's not a concern of mine right now. And so that's, I don't know, that was a way to sort of like assuage the shame
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. I don't know if it always worked perfectly. Another one that stood out to me is I should probably have told you the story because I don't know because you didn't grow up religious. So I just assumed everyone knows the story of the prodigal son.
I was actually just thinking, so my mom told me that I used to know, so I did go to Sunday school or
Sure.
a religious preschool. And so my mom told me that I used to know like all the Bible stories, but I have retained none of them. So, I mean, yes, feel free to teach me a lesson from a Bible story.
Yeah. We can, I don't know, splice this in before I go into like why it matters to me. I don't
Sure.
know. Ben, I hear you're a magician.
He's
so
excellent.
Absolutely. The story of the prodigal son goes like this, and I'm obviously glossing over a large portion of it, but this dude, he's got sons and he likes them because they're his sons.
Good.
That part of the story is very normal. Like the guy, but here's the thing: one of the sons is an asshole, and he was like, "So all that money you were gonna give me when you died? Well, I want that now, and also I'm leaving you. Bye." So he takes all this money, and he goes off and he like parties and shit. Like he goes to Cabo, and just completely wastes all the money. And then he's like, "Oh shit, that was a bad thing to do. Shouldn't have done that. Kind of a dick move on my part." And so he goes back and he's thinking that he's going to have to beg on his knees for his father's forgiveness. And he was hoping to come back and essentially work as like a farmhand for pennies, just to be back and to have some kind of wage. But he gets back, and instead of the dad just shitting on him, he throws a huge party. And he's like, "Holy shit, my son is back. How dope is that?" And he slaughters like the biggest pig or something. Not pigs, they were Jewish. Like maybe a calf or something, something real good,
like
something that you only save for like
Yeah.
special occasions. Just a big old animal. And the other son is like, "Excuse me, I have been nothing but good and loyal to you, and you haven't thrown me diddly shit parties. All right." And the dad's like, "That's a fair point. However, I care so much more that something that I thought was lost to me is no longer lost, and that deserves celebration. Um, so that's essentially the story, a little bit editorialized by me. I don't think they swore as much in any of the translations I've read. So
But that was very easily digestible, which most other Bible stories that I've heard are not. So maybe
If
that's the key.
anybody wants like an easily digestible form of this story or others, I mean, especially if you've got little kids, get them on that Veggie Tales. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is the story of the prodigal son. Veggie Tales. Yes, I own it on DVD, probably still. I don't know. At some point, I definitely had it.
Does
Veggie
everybody
Tales.
know that Veggie Tales is religious?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
well, yeah,
I didn't
they talk about God all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode, but I didn't know. I didn't know
fucking
that.
love some Veggie Tales.
Interesting.
Well, it's interesting too. I just learned this the other day. So like VeggieTales is a huge part of my childhood, naturally.
Yep.
But I learned that they were worried that they were that they were implying that these anthropomorphic vegetables were also Christians who were getting to heaven. So they never explicitly say, like, this is my God. They always say, God wants you to be happy and to be a good person. And they never once say, and that's me. Because they didn't want, again, to imply vegetables.
Because vegetables don't go to heaven.
No, they don't.
Oh
They
my
don't.
gosh.
They all go to hell, actually.
Yeah.
That's in the Bible. All vegetables go to hell. And for good reason.
All dogs go to heaven, though. That is a fact.
Yes, that, and they showed that in the documentary with the same title.
Yep.
I did see that. I did love that movie.
They even have a whole Christmas version of that documentary. Used to watch it every December as a kid.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I'm sorry, guys. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh
be
man,
in
the
this
like
inside
bad
joke.
guy dog in that Christmas one. His name was Carface.
Oh my, wait. Yeah,
Not Scarface. It was Carface.
Oh.
Oh God! And I would sob every single time they'd sing the
Well, that's
song about the little boy who threw the dog out. Oh God, get me in my feels every time.
I know.
Why do you think so many people with your upbringing take a very conservative path that seems to be like in conflict with so many of those Bible stories, at least to me?
Well, absolutely. And I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, I've got family members who, you know, they live in the South and they're still very strictly conservative while still being also very strictly Christian. And I think it has less to do with I need to reconcile these two, like this cognitive dissonance, and more of it's not something I have to wrestle with because it's not necessary, really. You know, they don't see that as being a priority for them in the same way that like some people are okay with, you know, what's a good metaphor that doesn't water things down entirely? Okay, so you know how some people they care a lot about their car or whatever, or they like love their car but they don't take care of it at all. They just don't, you know, it's like more for appearance sake or social, you know, they don't actually care about the car. They're not going into it. If it's sick, maybe put it in a, if it's sick if it's sick, bring it to the car doctor, maybe everyone, but it's not something that they you know, they don't really care about driving skills. They don't, it's mostly there for aesthetic and show. And what religion is to a lot of these folks is not a guiding way of life, even though that's how it's preached. What it really is a tribe. It's a way to connect with the other people in your tribe. You have something to align yourselves around. And so and there are a lot of other socioeconomic factors that go into making someone conservative, and that those are all much more powerful than the words that happen to be said on Sunday. And also, it doesn't hurt that the Bible contradicts itself left and right, and so you can cherry pick verses here and there to justify pretty much anything. The Bible is used to justify slavery. It was like, yeah, it's in the Bible. We should own slaves. And then later it was used to argue against interracial marriage, and then it was used to argue against gay marriage. Any political ideology can be supported by verses in the Bible. So if that's something that can be done, it will be done because again, these other factors, this needing to belong to a tribe, this social pressure from the other Christians, quote unquote, in your circle, all of this serves to keep this particular branch of religious thinking alive, and it's not necessarily led by scripture, but rather scripture is used in service of the ideology.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that it's about like in groups and out groups, and they want to be in the in group, and they don't
it's just a way
necessarily think it's in conflict with each other.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I think of it a lot like sports teams in a way.
Yeah.
Like if you grow up in Minnesota, you love the Vikings and you hate the Packers. And the people who are Green Bay Packers fans are bad people.
Yeah.
We're good people. And on some level, we know that doesn't make sense at all. It's just people grew up in these places and they like these football teams.
Right.
But we're dumb humans with monkey brains, and we see this whole in-group, out-group thing, and anything our side, quote-unquote, does is justified and good, and anything their side does is bad, and we can dismiss it, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And there's no nuance. It's just good and bad.
Right. Oh, the other thing that I should mention here is that Christianity is intricately tied to power in the United States since our inception.
Yes.
We were founded by Puritans in the 15th century, and we left because I was nowhere near there. None of my ancestors were either. I think all of my ancestors are Scandinavians from like the 19th century or whatever. Doesn't matter.
Some of mine were there, so collective we.
So yeah, it was Puritans who left because they didn't like the direction the church was going in England. This dude was like, "I'm gonna get a divorce," and there were enough people who were like, that is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Divorce? No, thank you, sir. So they got on a big boat, and then they came over here, and they're like, "We're gonna be conservative Christians on our land." Well, not our land. Well, it's our land now a little bit. And that's the start of America, was a bunch of people being like, you religious folks are getting a little too lefty. Yeah. We're going to start our own theme park with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah. Y'all are going to hell, but we'll be over here.
We're so convinced that you're going to hell that we're going to move to a different continent.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on, I'm going to let my dog in the door so that before he whines and ruins this recording.
Oh, absolutely. Also, I said 15th century, but what I meant was 17th century, I think. So 1600s was when the first English settlers... Yeah, was that right?
Yeah, like 1619.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
We could talk about that whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And how we other people straight into having our whole economic and societal system of norms based on othering, based on race.
We hate to see it.
Yeah.
There's a really good documentary. It's a couple-part documentary called "The Family" about the influence that the Christian right still has in America, and it's pretty alarming if anybody watches it. I can't remember if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, or maybe even Hulu. I should stop streaming so much stuff. Okay, so when Joe Biden became the Democratic nominee, Morgan and I were quite disappointed, as I
naturally
think you were also.
Absolutely.
How have your feelings on that changed at all since his nomination? Like, where are you at now?
I think it's a complicated question, but I will start very simply by saying I do not like him at all. I find these accusations of sexual harassment and abuse valid, and
Yep.
I absolutely believe that people have come forward. And you know, I could never, in good conscience, vote for that.
Yeah.
Aside from all the reasons I differ from him politically, just that alone is something that I don't think I could stomach. But
Where do
I
you
also,
live now? Do you still live in Seattle?
yeah, I live in Seattle.
Okay, because I'm in Illinois and Morgan is in Iowa, so we're still in the Midwest. But Illinois is like a blue trifecta, and Iowa is a red trifecta. So we
Yep.
live in very different states. But I was just curious, like what your political landscape looked like.
Yeah, so Seattle is obviously one of the most left-leaning cities in the country. That does, it's not saying much. Like our police department is still,
Mm-hmm.
you know, abusing innocent people in the streets and shit like that. We've got our own mess of problems. But in terms of electoral politics, we tend to elect the more progressive side of Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember the last time Washington red. Maybe it was like Reagan, I think, probably, you know, when he won every state except
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, you know. But there's absolutely zero doubt in my mind it's going blue in terms of the presidential
Right.
election. They're going to vote for Biden. So in that sense, well, electoral politics is so weird.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There are moral stances or moral arguments for either way. You know, like I can say I'm not voting Joe Biden, and that's okay because my state's going blue anyway. I will not shame anyone for voting for Joe Biden if they feel like they need to.
That's
you know?
pretty much
like
where
they're
we're
like
at too.
Yeah.
I hate Donald Trump so much, and I'm willing to vote for Joe Biden to get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a huge step up,
Mm-hmm.
but I completely understand that impulse, even if it's, I don't know. I won't shame anyone for taking that stance.
Yeah.
What
I felt relief. Sorry, go ahead.
I will always say though that direct action, the things we've been seeing like the riots and the protests, are much more effective at creating actual change
Exponentially, yeah. Just
absolutely.
Look at yeah. Ugh,
Minneapolis. I looked it up, and they've got Minnesota has a Democratic governor,
Mm-hmm.
a Democrat. Both the senators are Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Minneapolis has predominantly Democrat leadership, and that's where we had this horrific murder that
Right.
kicked off this whole new wave of movements, and it led to George Floyd's killers getting arrested. But it still happened under Democratic leadership. So
Yeah.
obviously, the real change comes from people on the streets.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I will say that having leaders who are more responsive to that is an asset.
Yeah.
So
When you mentioned that Joe Biden is like a small step up,
yeah,
I feel like white supremacy is like a bacterial infection in our country, and we need like a really, really tough course of antibiotics, and like we need to take it all the way through so that we don't get any like drug resistant bacteria. And Joe Biden is just like not strong enough of an antibiotic. Like,
yeah,
we're going to take it because like we don't really have another choice, but like he's not going to get rid of this whole infection. Like there's a lot more work that we have to do, but like,
yeah, it's like one step above a placebo.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my, that's exactly right.
I think I've been saying this for a little bit, but I mean, it feels weird to have to reiterate I hate Trump. You know, he's a very bad man, does very bad things, awful person,
Mm-hmm.
horrible, has done bad things, very, very bad. However, I think the worst thing that he's done is he's given a lot of people an easy target for evil bad man
Yeah.
rather than evil bad structure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Evil bad way that everything is constructed. All of this isn't like he was elected. I mean, he didn't get more votes in the popular vote, but I mean, America elected him, and that was a thing that was possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and if that's the case, then we've got much broader systemic issues that we need to start tackling.
Yeah.
And so coming back to my original point was that I think a lot of people will see Donald Trump being removed from power as like, we did it.
Yeah.
We fixed it. We had a racist man in power, and now we don't.
Now there's a good guy in power. It's like,
now there's a good guy.
excuse me.
Which is, it's a problem that we have throughout history. We like to assign heroes and villain labels to lots of historical moments rather than seeing the waves of structure and waves of power and all the nuance therein. It's why we build statues of people and not crowds.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot about how, well, when people talk to me about politics, I talk about and think about politics a lot more than most people. But when people are like, I just get so overwhelmed by it, I always think like, don't idolize like people. Don't look at people.
Yeah.
Like whatever you care about that, and then figure out which politicians align them, so like their values align with yours, and then you don't really have to worry about it so much. Like,
exactly. And a lot of people, I think, forget that politicians are public servants. They're not there to, it's not a large part of their job to come up with new ideas on how to best, it's their duty to listen to the people, their constituents, and respond in a way that affects the change that their constituents want to see. Whereas a lot of people think of it, again, like, I keep going back to sports, but it's like, we want our guy to beat their guy.
yeah.
And I don't care if he deviates from my particular line of thinking. I just want him to beat the other guy.
Yeah.
Which is not the most effective way to do a politic.
Well, and like if it's a corporate Democrat, it's not all that like your guy is not all that different than, I mean, than a lot of many. Then
absolutely.
Their interests are their best interest is in the status quo remaining the same also. So like your guy versus his guy are the same guy. Like there's, I don't know.
Yeah, even if we have like, I don't know, Republican presidents for the next 20, 30 years, like people like Pelosi will still be raking in lots of money, and like they'll still be in positions of power, and they'll wring their hands and be very upset about the things going on. But if it took completely dismantling the system to create meaningful change, like they're gonna fight against it. And as we saw with the DNC's push to eschew Bernie and shoving someone more aligned with corporate interests.
Sure, for sure.
This like makes me think so much of that book, Katie, that we like talked about a little bit, that we want to do a whole episode on, called Politics is for Power. It's about how to move beyond political hobbyism and take actions and make real change. It's by Etan Hirsch. And it's like the whole thing is about like your analogy to it being like a sports team. Like people are just like, rah, rah, my guy, or basically like they align themselves to like an ideology or like political party rather than actual like change. And rather than like getting behind ideas or movements, it's all just about like, well, which color is the state that this candidate represents? And it's, and it's so fascinating, but it's also enraging at the same time.
My dad cares about, Dad, love you very much. You're very supportive. Thank you for listening to this podcast.
You raised a very good daughter.
Oh, yay.
Good job, Don.
But he spends a lot of time thinking about politics. He spends a lot of time very angry about politics, and he's super progressive. But like we'll be talking about something and I'll be like, okay, well, like, did you call our senators? And he's like, well, of course not. And it's like, what? Like, how do you spend this much time being this mad, but you don't actually do anything productive? But anyway, so now he does, but it's just, there are so many people out, like he spends so much time thinking and being angry about politics, but I think now he has moved from like political hobbyism into actually doing stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah, I like to say that I wish I didn't care about politics. You know, it's not fun.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, I wish I didn't have to care, but caring about, you know, structures and, you know, marginalized folks, you end up having to care about political systems and political structures. It's all intertwined. But like you're saying, it's unfortunate how easy it is to turn it into a spectacle. And because it generates drama, it generates intrigue, and it's a good show. That's why political coverage, especially during election cycles, is constant 24/7. There's just so much. Oh, I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I just focus on like state legislative races and try not to think about Joe Biden because it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to vote in November, but my focus is mostly on local policy stuff. I know it's going to be heavily influenced by, we've had a few protests and riots here. I participated in one because it was directly outside my apartment. I live across the street from a police station.
Oh.
So there was a protest happening outside, and I grabbed a snare drum and I went and
Very nice.
snared over there, which is fun. But
Everybody
we don't do
needs
it
a
for
drum
fun.
line.
No.
That's awesome.
But other than that, I try not to leave too much. I'm getting so distracted. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just completely losing my train of thought here. Where was I? Oh yeah, local elections.
Yes.
Important because local. Yep.
We like the local stuff. It matters more. It's easier to impact. Your money matters there more. It's just, and like, there's actual candidates on the local level that are worth getting excited over.
Absolutely.
Whereas the most like excited I can get about Joe Biden is we probably have to hear a lot less about Trump. So
yeah, exactly. Oh man, I don't think Trump wants to be president anymore. He just seems so White House just released a statement that was like, we're just gonna have to live with COVID, that whole thing.
right.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to do the job. I don't think he wanted it in the first place. I think he was like, this election cycle gonna do numbers for me.
Yes.
I didn't mean to do his voice there, but I kind of got a little bit into it.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to win either.
I feel like he's only just like trying to run, like continuing to even run because it's the only way he can assure that he won't end up in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully, they'll have 4 years to figure out how to get Ivanka in the Oval Office so that he can continue to stay out of prison until he dies.
Yeah. He
but
looks bad. Like
he looks miserable.
I mean,
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, when was the last time this man was happy?
right.
If ever.
Yeah. Probably never. Like it seems
Because
like
he spent his whole life trying to get make his father proud, like any child of a dysfunctional father, and and then he didn't. That never happened, and then he tried to get that love from other places and that adoration and worship from other places, and now I'm New York hates him. Everyone hates him.
Yep.
Not everyone. There are some people who love him very, very much.
He hates them.
Yeah, I was saying, but he doesn't care about those people.
So weird. It's so weird. This is off topic. Well, it's not political, but I am wondering, do you know who Bill Gothard is?
The name sounds familiar. Let me do a
Morgan's laughing. Have you heard of do you know what the Quiverful movement is? Like what the Duggars are? 19 Kids and Counting. Okay, so
yeah.
So Bill Gothard was the leader and creator of a sect called the Institute for Basic Life Principles. So do you remember when like the oldest Duggar son got in trouble for like molesting his sister or something?
Yeah.
Am I the only one who keeps up on this like Duggar related scandal?
Yeah, I everything to compare or to misquote a tweet that I think about all the time. Like everything I've learned about the Duggars, I've learned against my will.
Okay, well, I'm about to teach you some more stuff against your will. Sorry.
Awesome, let's do it.
But so his ideologies are really harmful. But anyway, I think about him and talk about him all the time because he's my fucking neighbor. He lives right across the street from me. He has like 22.
You're kidding me.
Nope. And it's terrifying. Well, it's not. I mean, he's an old man. Like he's a sad old man now. Like he hobbles around. He mows his he mows his lawn in a suit. It's
naturally.
terrifying.
Do you not?
So, but the basics of the Institute of Basic Life Principles is that there's like God, and then like man reports to God, women sports to man, and then women is over the children. Of course, the way that it's supposed to be.
As God intended.
What?
As God intended.
Right. Yes. But anyway, he got, of course, as creepy men do, he got in trouble for sexually assaulting like 22 women or something like that. Never went to prison for it. He did go to like trial, but I can't remember like what didn't happen. But basically, like nothing ever. They did. It was bad enough that they kicked him out of his own cult. So it still yes. So it still exists. It's in like Texas now. He showed up to one of their biggest congregation of the year, and they had the police take him away in handcuffs. So like not enough to get him in trouble with actual police, like he's never served time, but like what he did was fucked up enough that they kicked him out of his cult. But he still just like exists and like lives just chills across the street from me. It's terrifying.
And Katie, idea. What if you put a big old sign in your yard that said God is a woman?
I would. I do have one of those hate has no home here signs, so I think he probably understands that he is not welcome here.
I love people who see hate has no home here and immediately think that that's about them.
Yeah.
That's so telling.
I know.
And the creepiest thing was that my cat got hit by a car like a little bit less than a year ago, and I was handing out flyers trying to find her before I knew that she was hit by a car, and I handed one to him because he was outside, and I pretended not to know who he was because, it's like a power move. I'm trying to like infiltrate, see if I can get some, I don't know, other people are getting caught for DNA shit. Maybe I'll be the reason he goes to jail. I'm not against dedicating the rest of my life to this, or the rest of his life to this. But he told me so anyway, the next time I saw him, he was like, "Did you find your cat?" And I said, "No, she got hit by a car." And he said something about how like it was because I loved the cat too much that like God wanted me to like be putting that love towards him. And I was just like, ooh, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Fuck you, dude.
You loved cats too much, which means you didn't have enough love in your heart for God.
Right.
As we all know, there's only a finite amount in there.
Goes to cats or God. Mm-hmm. I had too much on the cat side, and that was my bad.
Yep.
Love is not a pie.
Blue whales are actually the most holy. Their heart is literally the largest heart in the world, and therefore they can love God the most. That's why you see so many Christian whales.
And what whales in heaven?
Well, they're just swimming in heaven, just everywhere.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, well, it is nice. Heaven, like Earth, most people don't know this, is also mostly water. And it's because most of the people who end up going to heaven aren't people, but whales.
Because of their hearts.
That checks out.
Yeah. This is all science.
Yeah.
Please don't bother fact-checking it because you don't need to.
We've fact-checked it. We're good.
I think I remember that like Heaven is for Real Kids saying something about water wings. So this is true.
Oh my God.
My mom, even God bless my mother. I love her so much, but she's got she knows that this has no backing in theology, but she like imagines heaven as being like rooms you can go to with some of your favorite stuff. Like she loves thunderstorms, and she believes that there's a room you can go to where you can just sit in a cozy little house while a thunderstorm is happening and read your favorite books.
That's lovely. I hope
which is lovely.
Real.
Yeah. I love my mom. I don't know if I've been the one pushing her more and more left, but she's definitely gotten more and more left. I mean, she despises Trump and all that, and she's definitely not the same person who was bringing me to Sunday school when I was 3, and we've grown very, very close, and I just appreciate her voice very much because even though she's still in a religion that I'm not a part of, a lot of her own faith expresses itself in compassion and kindness and etc. And she shows that not only to me but everyone that she encounters, and I'm very blessed to have a person like that in my life.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's how I feel by my mom too. That's good. All right, I have just one last question for you. but feel free to bring up anything else that you'd like to bring up if that you
Sure.
want. Mostly women in their 20s and 30s to hear, I think is what our listenership is.
Yeah, sure.
But we try to talk each week about political actions that we have taken. Do you have like a preferred political action? Like what your favorite way of interacting with the political system around you?
Yeah. So an issue. Well, I've got a couple, and some of them were easier to do before this whole COVID situation.
Sure.
I think that so my one issue that's very very close to my heart is homelessness, and that started when I was in middle school, and I took a mission trip, and I spent a lot of time with homeless children, and that I don't know, I guess I was an idiot and didn't think that there could be homeless children, like you know the media portrays as just dudes with beards under bridges and stuff. That shit just like broke my heart, and to this day it's something that I spend a lot of time and thought about. So when I was still employed, I'm not now. If anyone's hiring front end developers, let me know.
I'm also unemployed, if it makes you feel better.
I would give I mean, no one's too busy to help, but an easy way for me to feel like I was making a difference was to donate to an organization in Seattle called Mary's Place, which is for homeless women and families. Who are an often neglected part of just the more broad view on homelessness. I think that the very, very visible aspects of it and the media portrayal of it is very, man with drug problems and violence issues and mental health issues. And while these are all absolutely problems that need to be solved, it doesn't make for a sympathetic character, if you will. And so I noticed that like the people who didn't fit that mold were, I mean, everyone deserves the help, but they were getting especially neglected because of this unfair portrayal, this unsympathetic portrayal. And so I would donate money to, like I said, the name is Mary's Place and homeless women and families in Seattle. I like them very, very much. But the other thing I would do was like, I just because I worked in downtown Seattle for a while, I walked past many homeless folks every day. And occasionally let me start over. I often feel like what I'm told the needs of the homeless community are by organizations and like outlets that I don't necessarily trust 100%. So talking to the actual people on the street, being like, what can we do? How can we help? Is that really started shaping how I interact with that community. So that's probably the most active I get. I mean, I sign petitions and I use my platform to talk about issues.
That's real. I know. I feel stupid too, but like, if it makes you, the like books that I read about it and stuff, especially with this COVID stuff, like that's how you do it. I mean, and especially with like the people that follow you on social media, like they trust your voice and it normalizes the topics that you're talking about. So I just don't, you shouldn't minimize those contributions too, because they, like, I don't know, I think they go along a lot further than people think.
I just I guess I'm preemptively defending myself against the people who are like, so you think you can just sign a petition and call yourself a hero? And I'm like, no,
that's what I heard you say. Yeah.
Okay.
Kyle's
but yeah, that's pretty much been the extent of what I've been doing, because I don't have money right now. I'm not going out places and talking to people.
Right.
So it's mostly just signing petitions and emailing people in power about issues that I care about, stuff.
Yep. Nice, very nice. And we donate money to an organization. Is Mary's Place where you would want that to go, or is there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's like it is. It's definitely not easy to be exposed right now to just live outside constantly, and even though the weather is nice, quote unquote nice here, it's still very, very dangerous, especially when you're not able to practice those safe habits.
Right.
So, and shelters are getting overwhelmed by the needs that they can't meet those needs and things like that. So I think that would be a great place if you were feeling so moved to donate.
We would love to. We will definitely be doing that. Is there anything else that you wanted? Any points you wanted to make before we go?
I guess the only thing that, so as I've been talking so much, I'm aware that I need to do as much listening as I'm doing talking, and so I encourage, and it's hard for people who have a platform. There's this sort of range that goes between I have I can speak on things versus I'm speaking over other people and I'm missing nuance and I don't know the whole story. I don't know. So I just encourage a lot of listening.
Yeah.
Figure out who you should be listening to. It's probably not Kyle Plant Emoji. He's just learning all this shit now.
No, Kyle Plant Emoji's a hero.
He signs petitions. Getting very John Mulaney. He signed a petition. He is a goddamn hero in my eyes.
You can replace one of the Confederate.
Yeah, absolutely. No, God, I love him so much.
Yeah, who doesn't?
If he ever gets outed as being a terrible person, I will have no faith left in any person who has any amount of notoriety or fame. Or
I think
hope
he's
he
okay.
Safe.
I get a good vibe.
Right.
Yeah, I
do
think
too.
He's okay. I think he'll be all right.
But again, vibes are always misleading.
I mean, we all said that about Terry Crews too.
Yeah.
But
a week ago,
and
we
Bill
were
Cosby was the ultimate vibe.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just I was not surprised by any means when I heard about Chris D'Elia, I guess is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I got, you got those vibes.
I feel weird about, I want to say that I'm not surprised, but I also feel weird about claiming that because I want to be surprised when somebody turns out to be a shitty predatory person. I want that to be, I want that to be like a rarity.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, lots of people are shitty.
Yep. Yeah, it's I don't know. Morgan and I talk about this a lot, but it would probably be better if we just understood that sexual trauma and trauma in general is the baseline in this country, especially for women. Yeah. And let's move from there instead of assuming that it's uncommon.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that has pushed me, and I hate that this is the case and I wish it wasn't, but hearing so many stories from every single girl that I dated having one of those stories, it just broke my heart. And I'm so mad that it took hearing those stories for me to realize the breadth and the depth of this particular problem. But yeah, it's a fucking plague.
I mean, I didn't realize it until I was 27 and I'm a woman. So I don't think you need to feel bad. I think just once you know better, then you just do better. And so I think it's good that it occurred to you at all.
I think that we're still dealing with redemption arcs, honestly. I don't think I also don't know if we need to focus on that right now because we're focusing on actually finally outing these people as abusers. But when it comes down to, I don't know, a Twitter user who said a racial slur back in 2012 or something, I don't think that we're that great at holding them accountable in a productive way. Like,
Sure.
absolutely, we should hold people accountable. Are we doing it in a way that allows for change and redemption? Like, because we want
like
growth. We
growth,
love to
right,
see growth.
right.
And so how do we hold people accountable and encourage growth at the same time? I'm not. There are probably people who have thought about this a lot more than I have, and there are probably some really good answers on it. So. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything really, really solid.
Yeah.
I'm loving like this kind of like conversation can circle back to what we were talking about earlier about like the biblical stories and how like so many shitty people are in the Bible, and the ones that Jesus specifically called out is like, you know who's not going to heaven? Rich people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. You know, the story of the Good Samaritan. That was another story that influenced me, especially after. So the story of the Good Samaritan, for those who aren't aware, and I'll do the Kyle abridged version for this as well. A dude was walking down a road, which was a dangerous thing to do back then. You shouldn't walk down roads. Anything can happen on a road.
Still true for women.
Especially, this person happened to not be a woman, but he did happen to have things, which was a dangerous thing to do if you're walking down a road. So he had things, and some people decided that they wanted them so bad they would beat him up about it. And so they beat him up about it, and they took his stuff, and they left him for dead on the side of the road. And then one good guy, I think he was like a priest or something, I don't know, he was walking by, and the guy was like, hello, I'm dying. May I have a help, please? And the guy was like, I got things to do. And he ran away. And then a second guy who was supposed to be a good guy came walking along, and the same thing happened. He was like, I would like to not be dying. And the guy said, that seems like a you problem, and left. But the third guy, he was a Samaritan. And Sunday school tries so hard to teach you what a Samaritan is without being politically incorrect. They're like, so he was from a country that people didn't like Samaritans. They were considered bad guys, but this is a good guy. So, you know, wrestle with that and come to your own conclusions. No. And so then there's this guy whom everyone was racist against, and he ended up being the good guy who helped him and got him to safety and helped bandage him. And the moral of the story is, even this guy that you hate can be a good guy, even when your own people, the people that we say are good people, ignore you and leave you for dead on the side of the road, quite literally.
I remember our Sunday school teacher being like, for the Samaritan, it was actually like a risk to him to help the person from, I believe the way our Sunday school phrased it was like warring tribes, essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
But, you know, and they're like, but the Samaritan didn't think, what's going to happen to me if I stop? The Samaritan thought, what's going to happen to this guy if I don't? And like 6-year-old me was like, oh man, this is real deep
That's
shit.
some deep shit.
And you have lived that life ever since.
Yep.
But I remember a youth pastor or something, or Sunday school teacher. I don't remember when it was, but this is like maybe in, I don't know, like 2006 or something. So 5 years after 9/11, and I don't know how, it reads as tone deaf now, but it kind of helped me grapple with the story at the time. He's like, someone might phrase this story as like it sounds so bad now, but like the good Muslim, you know, and to a bunch of conservative kids in suburban Minnesota, we're like, okay, I get it. It connected. And again, that reads so poorly now, but at the time I was like, oh yeah, so we're all the same, and we shouldn't consider them to be an enemy just because blah blah blah. Yeah. I don't want to end on that racist note though.
Well, what else should we talk about then? What else has to do with religion and politics and
Everything.
I mean, yeah, of course.
VeggieTales
All of the
unironically has some of the best music I've ever listen to. I did an a cappella cover of one of the VeggieTales songs. And to this day, it's one of the favorite things that I've ever produced.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
what's that from? Oh, it's from the one about Daniel in the Lion's Den.
Love that one.
Yeah. Oh no, what you gonna do? The king likes Daniel more than me and you. Oh no, what we gonna do? We gotta get him out of here. At the end of the song, they rhyme. We could use him as a footstool or a table to play Scrabble on, and tie him up and beat him up and throw him out of Babylon. They rhymed a table to play Scrabble on with throw him out of Babylon.
I mean,
my mind was blown. Like that was Eminem for like elementary school me. I was like bars. Bars.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm glad you had the VeggieTales to positively influence your childhood, and I guess I missed out.
Absolutely.
It can still positively influence you as an adult. It's fantastic. VeggieTales is timeless.
I mean, I don't want to read to learn any Bible stories, so...
I want my theology told to me by a pickle.
Yeah, and I want there to be lots of colors, lots of animation. Thank you very much. I mean...
My high school English teacher took a similar approach when we were doing like a unit on like Greek mythology and different, stories. We did like the Iliad, the Odyssey. Well, when we got to Oedipus, she just showed us a video that was Oedipus with vegetables. It was horrifying and traumatizing and hilarious and one of the most memorable things of my entire high school experience. Wow. So, I mean, vegetables as a teaching tool is clearly what China has on America from an educational perspective. They figured it out way before we did. It's got to be. I
don't think I would want to watch a live action telling of the Oedipus story. I think that would have traumatized me even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still traumatized, and Oedipus was just
one small thing that I don't like about how the Oedipus story. So, Freud's an idiot, right? But he came up with the. He was a smart guy in some respects. He asked the right questions, came up with the very wrongest answers possible. But he called it the Oedipus complex when you want to, 1, kill your dad, and 2, fuck your mom. But he wanted to do neither of those things. That's the whole point of the story. The whole point of the story is very, very much not wanting to do that and doing whatever you can to avoid that, and then it happened anyway. So if his entire motivation is, I don't want this thing to happen, you can't name a whole complex.
That does suck a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How shitty would that be if you were like, okay, so I was prophesized that I was going to step in dog poop. I'm not even going to go outside. I'm going to stay inside. And then like someone throws dog poop through a window and you step on your way to the bathroom and everyone's like, the guy who loves stepping in dog poop. It's
anyway, there goes dog shit Kyle again.
Exactly.
Yeah, like legitimately, like Oedipus complex would be a much better term for like my approach to my relationships, where I'm like, don't fuck this up, don't freak them out, don't scare them away, don't be too mysterious, but also don't divulge too much about yourself. And then I do exactly all of those things. That's more what it is.
Well, it's been working, so I think you're good.
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I got a colony of feral cats.
Yeah, what more do you need? All right. Well, Morgan, did you have anything else you wanted to ask before we let Kyle go?
No, I don't think so. You took all the good questions. That's fine.
Sorry.
You piece of shit.
No, I am the worst. All right. Well, then, I guess I will set us up to do a sign off. Thank you, Kyle, so much. Well, sorry, this sounds like the sign off. I was actually just genuinely thanking you. And then I was going to do the sign off, but I realized that sounds just like a sign off. But like legitimately thank you for giving us some of your afternoon.
Yeah, for real.
Well, thank you for having me on. I mean, I like talking to smart people about things that I care about.
So do we.
So this is a pleasure.
Yeah.
If you think of anything else that you ever, so far we've done like We have episodes on white supremacy. Our next one's on the war on drugs.
Ooh.
What else do we talk about? I mean, really anything.
We
Like
talked
we talk about
Syria, the Green New Deal.
systemic
We talked about a
justices
lot.
all over. Injustices.
And we're going to have to revisit some of these because eventually we get new information.
Yeah.
So if you ever feel like ranting, you can have this platform whenever you want.
Oh, I often feel like ranting.
You just let me know.
It sounds good.
All right. Okay, well, I will start our sign off then. Well, thank you so much to Kyle, Kyle Plant Emoji on Twitter, if you guys ever need a laugh or some random musical interludes. But thanks so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a good rest of your week and stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me. This was just a treat. Just a gosh darn treat.
We could not agree more.
For real.
Perfect.
And thank you so much for writing our intro music too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I unironically love that piece of music so much. It's one of the favorite things I've ever written. Like that melody.
I know. Chef's kiss.
Mwah.
Yes. Thank you. All right, Kyle. Well, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds great. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
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 All right. Yeah. So that was Kyle. We really appreciate him joining us today. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Also, really follow him on Twitter. He's like the funniest person on Twitter. Kyle Plant Emoji. At Kyle Plant Emoji.
Yeah, Kyle's awesome.
Yes. So what I want, the substance of what I want to talk about instead, I'll bash evangelicals all day, but the substance of what I want to talk about is churches and taxes. So we don't tax churches, and we really should. We really need to. So Americans rely super heavily on philanthropy, and I've been in an argument before with my least shitty ex, the one that I almost married, the only one that I'm not really embarrassed to have dated, who I still will talk to once every couple months. That one. So we got in an argument once because he said that when taxes are lower, more people give to charities and people give more to charities, which is true. But if you think about how all the biases that people have and stuff like that, we shouldn't be relying on people's generosity, especially Americans' generosity, because we just generally don't think in terms of the collective good. We are very individualistic. And so that is true, but also that same guy, my least bad ex, refused to go to my cousin's wedding with me in 2013 because he's Catholic and she was marrying a woman. So those biases, I'm just gonna guess that his charitable giving is a little bit biased, he's not going to be giving to those causes,
Right.
and
so
they
it's
are deserving of
we
support.
shouldn't be relying on what the people who have money to
Right.
give away care about in order to fund basic social programs.
Right. It's just
for
a
human
fundamentally
well-being.
flawed argument.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I meant to say this is sort of just a bonus fun episode. We were glad that Kyle could join us, and this is a little rant that I have, but this is not exactly a full-blown episode. We're not going to give you actions at the end or anything like that. Don't worry. No.
Yeah,
extra
we're just
homework.
having fun talking shit.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, you've probably heard of 501c3s. That is a nonprofit tax designation. And because our social service net sucks so much here that people really, really rely on 501c3s or nonprofits or philanthropies, those are all used pretty interchangeably. So people rely on that to get their needs met. And I can't remember, have you ever worked at a United Way? I know you applied to a job at one.
I have not. I have volunteered
with
United Way, and then I've worked under United Way funded programs.
Okay, perfect.
But I did turn down the actual job.
I was going to talk about that a little bit. So for people who don't know what United Way is, oh, nice. Morgan has a little United Way cup. They're a really great organization. I interned there and worked there. for people who don't know what it is, it's a nonprofit and the focus is health, education, and financial stability. So basically, if you want to donate money to your community, but you don't really know where the highest need is, you can donate money to United Way because then they give out grants based on need and applications and whatever. So if you have programming that either fits under health or education or financial stability, you can apply for a grant from United Way and they will either give it to you or not give it to you. And there's like some reporting requirements to make sure whatever. But so you can either like, if you know that you want to donate to like the Boys and Girls Club, you can donate straight to the Boys and Girls Club, or you can donate to United Way, who may end up giving a $6,500 grant to the Boys and Girls Club for after school programming or something like that. Does that seem like a fair summary of what they do?
Yeah, yep, definitely. I mean, those are the pillars. I know, like, one of the nonprofits I worked at, almost like over half of our programs were funded by United Way, and some of those were programs for older adults, and some of those were
so
programs
broad
for children. It really was broad, and I think that was extra awesome. Like we had programs for mental health and suicide prevention, programs for, you know, more like healthy behaviors, diabetes prevention, other chronic disease things, fall prevention, all the way to like teaching like 4 and 5-year-olds about their 5 senses and the importance of brushing their teeth.
Aww.
And, you know, we had summer programs for kids, and yeah, like they do so much good work. And then even on the volunteer end, I had just as much fun as I did working under United Way funded programs.
Nice. Yeah, and we're not trying to argue that those shouldn't exist. We're trying to argue that they shouldn't be conditioned upon the wealthy people in the community funding them, you know?
Well, and partly because here's what happened. So the place I worked at, we taught comprehensive sex education, and some people found that out and stopped donating directly to our agency. And then when they donated to United Way and found out that we were funded by United Way, they specified in their donations to United Way that it shouldn't go to the programs that we were teaching because we believed in comprehensive sex education. And the amount of money that groups get shouldn't vary on the whims of people who just have completely, you know, like non-scientifically or even like human rights-based beliefs. Like these were specifically related to their, you know, religious beliefs. And then that was pretty crappy, to say the least.
Well, when I worked at the United Way when we lived in Central Illinois, and we lived in the town where State Farm was headquartered, and they were responsible for a ton of the economic activity there. I mean, it's a pretty relatively small town, and they have tens of thousands of employees. So the first year that I worked there, at United Way, the default on State Farm's, I think their like employee benefits package, whatever, they got to the last page and they could donate a certain amount of money to an organization. United Way used to be the default organization, and they used to get a shit ton of funding from State Farm. And then the next year, it wasn't even like they had a difference of like religious views or anything like that. It was just something as arbitrary as United Way was no longer the only choice or the top choice. They were a choice, but they were one of a lot of different choices. So United Way didn't get nearly as much fun. I mean, it was cut by, I think, more than half by something just as like arbitrary as that. Like went from like 4 million to like 2 million. And then you have to try and figure out the next year what social programs you're going to cut from the education or financial stability or health sections. So like all we're trying to say is it shouldn't be conditioned on stuff like that. So
yeah, well, and even like the economy of the area too, like the same city that I worked under United Way programs and volunteered with United Way, and that was such an enriching experience and it was amazing. But it was where the Caterpillar headquarters were
Yeah.
located. And when CAT moved their headquarters, we when I say we, I mean we as volunteers with United Way, as well as we as in an organization funded largely by United Way, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Because when they moved their headquarters, that meant the wealthiest people in town pretty much all moved to Chicago, the suburbs where they moved the headquarters to. And the donations just decreased so quickly. And so, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered what you were doing with the taxes in that city at the time. A ton of social programs in that city were just automatically screwed by a bunch of wealthy people making a decision.
Right.
Yeah, it was very uncool. It was very stressful. And we did have to stop doing some programs that were teaching kids how to read.
Yeah.
So.
I think people don't realize like the ripple effects.
Yeah.
But
good job, Caterpillar.
Yeah. So individual people might discriminate in their giving. The hope is that a place like United Way wouldn't discriminate in their giving, that they, would be more discerning and just equity focused with it. So why are we relying on United Way for American citizens' health, education, and financial stability? And then, like, what about the bigoted people who don't donate to United Way and donate directly to their own random pet causes that are influenced by their biases? That's why the government should run the social safety net. And we've talked about this before, but a really good example of it is Catholic hospitals. So 1 out of every 5 beds is in a Catholic hospital, and Catholic hospitals blatantly discriminate against women and gay people. They just do because they're allowed to. And that's the default for a lot of Americans. A lot of those patients don't have anywhere else to go because our government doesn't provide free health care. So that's their only option.
Yeah. And Katie, we've both, I think, talked about before where we had our own healthcare limited by a Catholic hospital. And the reason that they can do that is because of that religious exemption.
Yeah.
And that should be how it is. So I don't know. I think when it comes to people suggesting that we should be taxing churches, people get really mad and they're like, well, what about all these other charities? And it's like, well, do those other charities have the ability to discriminate
freely
who they get give their services to just based on their own whim?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, for sure. And the Supreme Court has ruled that they're allowed to continue to discriminate. There's no signs of that being overturned. So fine, whatever, if they're allowed to continue discriminating, but they should be taxed just like everybody else is taxed. And also the government should provide bias-free healthcare for people so that religious groups don't hold people hostage to their ideals with life and death on the line. It's super weird.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing, it was a screenshot or a meme, and it was a meme with a GoFundMe for a small child whose family was trying to raise money for her cancer treatments. And, I mean, yeah, which already is super fucking sad. And then some fucking boomer commented how she was gonna donate, and then she realized that this child with cancer had 2 moms and was like, this is God punishing you for your sins by taking your child. There's the entirety of the fucked upness of that. Right. First off, it's super fucked up that kids get cancer. Right. We can all agree. Second off, it's super fucked up that in quote unquote the greatest country in the world, people have to start GoFundMes for things like healthcare, or because in the case of this family, due to all the medical appointments and stuff and having to move to be closer to the hospital where they received care, one of the moms had to quit her job. So it's because their health ability to receive healthcare was tied to their employment and all that. So it's shameful that we even have to have GoFundMes for medical care here. And then the fact that, again, this is just an example of someone whose personal biases made them decide, well, this child doesn't deserve cancer treatments. Her family doesn't deserve a roof over their head, whatever, because they're gay. Yeah. And hospitals can do that same thing, and they don't even have to pay taxes. Something tells me this boomer at least pays her taxes.
Yeah,
I
she has
mean,
to.
like, you know, and it's like individuals, yeah, we do. It's a free country, have the right to decide that we don't want to spend our money on a certain cause that we don't agree with. But we have to recognize that that also has consequences. And also, maybe we shouldn't treat entities the same way as individuals. But I know we've had that conversation before too.
Yeah. I also want to push back sometimes. I mean, I've seen this a couple different places, but when people are like, "Oh, it's so heartwarming that so and so helped this family reach their GoFundMe goal," and it's like, it's not heartwarming. It's fucked up that that needed to happen at all.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to put a feel good spin on it. That shouldn't feel good.
No.
But anyway, so, and that's okay. And the other part that is really messed up is that most charitable or tax-free donations in America go to charities that benefit the rich, like elite schools and universities, or like opera houses or museums, or as I like to call it, stolen cultural property.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, a lot of people donate a shit ton of money to things like that. I mean,
And
not that
like
it wasn't
that-
a huge tragedy, but remember when the Notre Dame Cathedral burned down
Yeah.
and like a bunch of rich people were like,
Like
here, take
30
all of our money to
million
save it.
Yes.
And it's like, really?
30
Like-
million like overnight. Yeah.
Yeah, and like because it is a pretty thing that they like and think is cultural and benefits them because they have the ability to go see it. I don't fucking know.
Right.
But we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and I mean, celebrities like Mark Zuckerberg have donated like 0.00004% of their wealth. What the fuck?
Yeah. So only a tiny amount actually goes to direct services for the poor. And if you're donating to somewhere like Planned Parenthood that does provide direct services, that's awesome. But we can't rely on everybody to be as generous and thoughtful as For Your Misinformation listeners, you know? Like, they're just, I think if you're bothering to listen to this, you're pretty thoughtful.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's very true. We love you guys, you all, you guys and gals, you people, you folks.
You're conscientious about
you.
where you're spending your time and energy and money, and that's
is so
that's
important.
awesome. But
Also, sidebar, do you like keep track of your donations? Because I got a little thank you for your donation postcard thing in the mail recently for an organization I did not fucking remember donating to. I was like, shit, I should be keeping track of this. I never report that stuff on my taxes because it feels like cheating.
yeah, I don't either.
But
I
I was
this
like,
exact thought.
when I mean, I knew that I had donated like to a local food bank during because of the pandemic and food shortages and stuff. But this particular one that was like, thanks for your donation. I was like, I don't think I gave to you. Did
That's
I?
cute.
Did I
I'm
give
sure
to you?
you did.
Like,
How'd they
I
get
must
your-
have,
how'd they get
or you
your
wouldn't have my
address?
information.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I don't think you're the one I donated to. Did I? Like, and I'm like, wow, I should really be keeping track of this stuff.
So, in like a perfect world, we would have a spreadsheet that had like the subject of the episode and then like the candidate that we highlighted and the organization we donated to. Like, that exists in my head. It has never been created. Like, what actually happens is that I'm like, oh shoot, Morgan and I are supposed to record in 45 minutes. I haven't picked a progressive candidate yet or an organization. I better find one that like makes sense with this episode. And then
Yeah. Until like a
hastily-
month ago, I was scrawling my episode notes into a crappy notebook.
yeah, no, we've come a long way, but we are not at Excel spreadsheet with
We got a long way to go.
with organizations on it at all. Someday. So no, I have no idea who all the I'm sure if I saw a total, I would be alarmed, but I'm just going to keep pretending everything's fine.
Think of the percentage of our wealth that we donate
I know.
compared to like actual rich people. And this isn't us saying like, we're so much better than them, but also just like,
No,
why is it
everybody.
it's always the fellow poors
Yeah.
who actually look out for each other.
Right.
What is up with that?
I don't know. I'm sure there's some explanation out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, right. So we shouldn't rely on everybody to be as thoughtful as we try to be.
Yeah.
So, on its own, the U.S. nonprofit sector is one of the world's largest economies. It's a $1 trillion economy. So, all of that is not getting taxed, but there's also not a ton of oversight or coordination on how the money is spent or who benefits from it, which, like, I know that there are reporting requirements for United Way grants and whatnot, but, like, it's not centralized. Like, I mean, United Ways is, but like that's only
Yeah.
some of that. You know, like it's just it's a patchwork where we need like a unified approach.
Yeah. Well, I think of something like a church, they don't have to report their salaries or anything.
Yes,
That's some real bullshit,
I
especially
know.
when a lot of those like mega church preacher owner people are driving around in private jets.
Yeah, at least other 501c3s do have to report like the salaries. So you can actually check out 501c3s on Charity Navigator and you can see like how efficiently they spend their money and stuff like that. And so that is like a watchdog organization. So that does exist. But again, like why why do we need all this patchwork when we could just, why can't we be in charge of stuff?
Yeah. Seriously, though.
Yeah. So, right. So, yeah. So, churches are particularly bad. They receive PPP loans from the government, which, why?
Yeah, that was bizarre when I learned that. I was like, what?
And also, religion is so broadly defined that even obviously like fringe cult Scientologists have the 501c3 tax exempt status. Oh, I remember this.
We should start a cult. We get accused of being a cult all the time.
John Oliver did. John Oliver started his own. I forgot about this. This is on YouTube somewhere. Everybody go watch it. It's really funny. I think he called it, it was like the cult of the, it's funny. Whatever. Of course it's funny. It's John Oliver. But
That's hilarious.
yeah, it's very funny. So yeah, we could definitely start our own 501c3. But basically what I've learned in kind of digging into this more is that there's this entire like nonprofit industrial complex trying to fill in the gaps that is left by the US government failing to give its own citizens health and education and financial stability. So I hope, I want to put it in a perspective that way so that people think about when they think about charity and stuff, they think about why that's so necessary, because in other countries it just is not nearly as reliant on like the goodness of people like you and me. It's the duty of the government to take care of its citizens.
Yeah, and the citizens take care of each other in a way that's like not like the way it is here.
They all wear their fucking masks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. Everybody wears their masks and God, yeah, like I have worked for a couple different nonprofits. I love them. I miss working for a nonprofit. But we shouldn't rely on them nearly as much as we do. Especially for the things that the government should be taking care of.
Yeah.
Like absolutely.
It's too much in their hands. We put too much responsibility in their hands, and then like they're kind of like they're the last resort. Like they're trying to like block, I don't know, they're trying to keep people afloat, but then something as arbitrary as State Farm not putting United Way first on their like yearly giving form cuts their funding by half, and then all of a sudden they have to figure out how they're going to fund Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers Big Sisters and all the other stuff that they fund. So that's what I want to leave you guys with today, I guess. I don't have any other parting wisdom. I just wanted to talk shit about how churches should pay taxes.
Yeah, they should. Like they should pay taxes, and if they're not going to, then they should at least be more transparent about their spending.
Yeah.
Like that might actually be a great place to start.
Sure.
The church I go to, I love, and they are very transparent about who they direct their funds to. I don't believe that they post salaries. I think that though, like, I feel confident they would at least be open to having that conversation. But yeah, like, and I think of them, like, and I'm like, wow, like they are so rare at this, church I attend, in their openness to be even forthcoming about where they're spending their money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that shouldn't be rare. Like, that shouldn't be the exception.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little bonus episode. I hope you enjoyed meeting Kyle.
Yes, thank you so much, Kyle.
For sure. All right, we will talk to you guys next week. And in the meantime, stay sexy.
And pay your taxes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening to For Your Misinformation. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you like it, give us a rating and a review. It helps us find more listeners, and the more of us there are, the better.
And make sure you're following along on Instagram and Twitter at FYMI Pod.
Shout out to Kyle Dibdahl for the intro and outro music, Hope Dye for the podcast art, and Ben Schlofelt for the audio production.
We come out with new episodes every Monday.